Let's take a look at this next one, G, this line. Well, notice this line, if we try to do the vertical line test, does pass. Vertical lines will only hit it once, so yes, it is a function. The question is, what is its domain and what is its range? Well, if we're looking for domain, we're going to be looking, again, reading the x-axis from smallest to largest, meaning we're going to start at the negative infinity end and work our way to positive infinity. Okay, well, notice that on the left-hand side where the negative infinity end is, our graph is actually going to keep on going forever in that direction to the left. Because even though we don't see it, that arrow means it will keep on going. Even though we don't see it, it'll keep on going. So the domain, it actually doesn't start anywhere. It's going to keep on going to the left here forever. So the domain actually starts at a negative infinity. It keeps on going to the left forever. Well, notice as you trace it to the right, it does the same thing on the other end. It's going to go to the right forever as well because of that arrow. It's going to keep on going, which means it's going to go off to a positive infinity on the right-hand side. Well, remember that infinities are special. We always use parentheses with infinities no matter what, so those will automatically be parentheses because they're infinity symbols. No other reason. But this makes sense. What this is saying is lines will go left and right forever in both directions. That's perfect. That is what lines do. So let's take a look at the range. The range, we're going to work the same way. We'll read along the y-axis. Remember, the y-axis gets read starting at the negative end, the smallest end, negative infinity, and we'll work our way up to positive infinity. Well, if we're looking at this down area, the right-hand side of our graph will keep on going down forever, which means we are going to start our y values down at negative infinity. So we'll start our y values down at negative infinity. And then as we trace our graph, it never actually stops. It has another arrow on this end that actually has it going up this way forever. So that means we're not going to stop on that end either. We'll go off to positive infinity. And just like before, infinity should have parentheses always. And what this means is my line is going up forever and down forever. Somewhere on it, it's going to go down forever, and somewhere on it, it will go up forever. And that's it. But that makes sense. Lines go left and right forever and up and down forever. So almost all lines will have a domain and a range that looks like this. Almost all lines will have a domain and a range of negative infinity to infinity. The reason why I say almost is we do have our two special cases, our horizontal and our vertical lines. They're the only ones that don't fit into these they're the only ones that don't fit into this case of the domain and range will be negative infinity to infinity always. Anything that just has a regular slope that is either a positive slope or a negative slope, just a regular line that isn't horizontal or vertical will be fine and will have a domain and range of negative infinity to infinity. It's just our special lines won't, and we'll talk about those later. Two more. So in H, again, it will pass the vertical line test. Vertical lines will only hit once, so it is a function. Okay, let's talk about its domain and its range. So for the domain, we're going to talk about, again, reading along the x-axis. from left to right, starting off at the smaller end at negative infinity and working our way off to positive infinity. Well, notice on that negative infinity end, our graph does go forever in that negative infinity direction. So we're going to start out with negative infinity. However, if we continue from left to right, our graph does stop right in the middle. What is that x value where it's stopping? Noticing it's stopping at where that point is, which is an x value of 0. So it is stopping here at the x value of 0, so comma 0. Well, just like in all of our other problems, infinities always have parentheses. However, that 0 has a closed point there. So even if we weren't sure, because of that closed point, we would definitely want to use a bracket to include the 0, because there's definitely a graph there. Let's take a look at the range for this problem. With the range, we would be going with the y-axis. We'd be starting again with the negative infinity end and working our way up. Notice the negative infinity end, our graph does go down forever. So we will start out with a negative infinity on the range as well. Comma, but notice our graph, if we continue up, stops at our point again, which is a y value of -1. It stops down there at -1 on our y-axis. So that means our range stops at -1. Remember, just like before, the infinity should always have a parentheses. However, the -1 where we stop is a point or a graph, so it should have a bracket, and we should be including that. And that is it. For this last one, notice it does pass the vertical line test again, so yes, it is a function. And again, we want to find its domain and its range. So looking at domain means we're going to be looking at our x-axis, again working from smallest to largest, so starting from the negative infinity end. Well, notice on the negative end, we do have an arrow going forever to the left, so we will be starting out with negative infinity again. As we go all the way to the right, though, and head towards positive infinity, we also notice on the positive infinity, we do have an arrow that will continue making it go to the right. Now, it does not matter that it's heading down. What it matters is that it's heading to the right. It will continue to the left. It will continue to the right. So it's going to continue off to positive infinity as well. Now, just like before, if we have infinities, remember we have to use parentheses always. So our domain is negative infinity to infinity, and that makes sense. Our graph does go left and right forever. Okay, how about the range? With the range, we're going to start at the bottom end with negative infinity. Notice both sides of our graph are going down forever. So we can definitely start with a negative infinity. Now working our way up, our graph does eventually stop here at a height of whatever this point is. Well, the y value for that point is a 1. So that means our range at the highest, our highest value it will get out is 1. Now, we already said if we've got an infinity, it should be a parentheses there. And at 1, because we have a point or a graph there, we need to include it, so it needs to be a bracket. So that's how we can work on finding the domain and range when we actually have either a list of points or a graph to actually look at. In our next section, we'll do something different.